The night was still, the heavens stretched endlessly above, each star glimmering like a watchful eye. A gentle wind carried whispers through the olive groves, rustling leaves like the hushed voices of those who had come before, those who had sought, those who had prayed, those who had longed to know the voice of the Almighty. Beneath the vast expanse of the universe, Elias knelt alone, his heart heavy with questions. His fingers gripped the earth as though seeking an anchor, a connection to something greater than himself. His lips parted, yet the words failed him, caught in the tension between faith and doubt. Have you ever whispered a prayer and wondered if God truly hears you? Have you ever searched for the right words only to feel distant? You unsure? Heard? The vast stretch of sky, endless and untouchable, seemed to mock his smallness. Had his prayers ever reached beyond the clouds, or were they merely carried away by the wind, lost and forgotten? What if the answer was never about the words themselves, but about the heart behind them? He had seen men in the temple, voices raised in rehearsed eloquence, their garments pristine, their faces lifted high for all to see. But he had also seen the poor, those who had nothing but desperation, whose voices trembled as they cried out from the depths of their soul. And he wondered, could it be that these prayers, humble and unpolished, reached the heavens more swiftly than the well-crafted speeches of the learned? A longing burned within him, urging him to seek, to understand. What if he had been searching in the wrong places? What if true communion with God was not about perfection, but about surrender? What if the key to unlocking divine connection was not in knowledge, but in something deeper, something hidden within the very fabric of the soul? Tonight we embark on a journey to uncover the true way to speak with the Almighty, a journey that has been hidden in sacred texts, practiced by the prophets, and revealed through divine wisdom. Elias exhaled slowly, rising to his feet. His path was set, and with it, a question that had lingered in the hearts of many before him and would continue to stir the souls of those yet to come. What is the true way to speak with the Almighty? If this question stirs something within you, if you've ever longed to understand the true power of prayer, then join this journey with me. Don't keep this discovery to yourself. Take a moment to like this video, share it with those who seek truth, and comment below, how has prayer shaped your life? And if you haven't yet, subscribe so we can uncover more hidden wisdom together. The answer is waiting. Will you take the first step? And so Elias's journey led him to his first lesson. Before speaking, one must learn to bow. Number 1. Approach with humility. His first stop was the house of a wise elder, a man whose knees were worn from years of bowing before the Lord. The old man listened to Elias's question and nodded with a knowing smile. Before you ask how to speak to him, ask yourself, how do you come before him? The elder said. He opened the ancient scrolls and pointed to the words of 2 Chronicles, chapter 7, verse 14. If my people, who are called by my name, will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven, and I will forgive their sin and will heal their land. Elias's heart trembled at the words. Humility, it was the first key. Not loud demands, not arrogance, but the posture of one who knows he stands before the King of the universe. The elder gestured toward a great mountain in the distance. Do you see that peak? He asked. Even the mightiest mountain erodes before the wind and rain. The heart that kneels before God is like the valley, lowly, yet fertile, able to receive his blessings. Elias thought of Moses, who removed his sandals at the burning bush, acknowledging the sacredness of God's presence. Exodus chapter 3, verse 5. He recalled how even King David, though powerful, humbled himself before the Lord, saying, Who am I, sovereign Lord, and what is my family that you have brought me this far? 2 Samuel chapter 7, verse 18. The elder continued, Pride is a wall that keeps God's voice from reaching you, but a humble heart is like an open field, ready to receive his rain. Elias lowered his head. He saw now that to truly pray, he must first strip away his pride, his self-reliance, and his need for control. He must approach God not as one who is worthy, but as one who is utterly dependent. For the first time in his life, he knelt, not out of ritual, but out of surrender. Number 2, speak with sincerity. Determined, Elias journeyed further, finding himself at the banks of a river where a lone prophet prayed. The man's voice was strong, but not in volume, rather, in the raw sincerity of his cries. Elias listened as the prophet spoke words not rehearsed, not adorned with embellishment, but pouring from the deepest places of his heart. Elias approached. "Tell me," he asked, "how do you pray?" The prophet turned to him and spoke the words of Jeremiah, chapter 29, verses 12 to 13. "Then you will call on me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart." The prophet's eyes burned with conviction as he continued, "Do you see the river before you? It does not hold back its waters, nor does it pretend to be something it is not. It moves with honesty, flowing freely, seeking the lowest ground." That is how prayer should be, unrestricted, real, pouring from the depths of your soul. Elias watched the water ripple and churn, understanding for the first time that true prayer was not about perfect words, but about the heart that spoke them. The prophet spoke again. David cried out to God in the wilderness, sometimes in joy, sometimes in anguish. Hannah wept bitterly in the temple, unable to even form words, yet God heard them both. Their prayers were real, honest, unfiltered. Elias recalled the words of Luke, chapter 18, verse 13, where the tax collector, too ashamed to lift his eyes to heaven, simply whispered, "God, have mercy on me, a sinner." His few words carried the weight of 1,000 prayers because they came from the depths of his heart. The prophet continued, "God does not desire grand speeches. He desires truth. Do not be like the Pharisees who pray to be seen. Be as a child speaking to their father, with trust, honesty, and love." Elias closed his eyes, feeling the wind brush against his face. He inhaled deeply, and as he exhaled, he whispered his first true prayer. Not rehearsed, not forced, but real. He spoke to God as though he were right there beside him, because in truth, he was. Number 3, pray in private. Elias's journey led him next to a hidden garden, where a teacher sat beneath the shade of a fig tree. The teacher welcomed him and, when asked about prayer, spoke the words of the master himself. "But when you pray, go into your room, close the door and pray to your Father who is unseen. Then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you." Matthew chapter 6, verse 6. Elias pondered this deeply. Many had taught him that prayer was most powerful when proclaimed openly, with others watching. But the teacher's words revealed something different, that the most profound prayers were whispered in solitude, away from the gaze of men, known only to the heart of God. The teacher continued, "Think of Moses when he ascended Mount Sinai alone, how he met God in the silence of the heights. Think of Daniel, who knelt privately in his chamber 3 times a day. God meets us where no other ears can hear, where no distractions can pull us away." Elias thought of Jesus himself, who often withdrew to desolate places to pray. Luke chapter 5, verse 16. The Son of God with all authority chose silence and solitude to commune with the Father. If even he sought the private place, how much more should Elias? The teacher gestured toward the trees swaying in the wind. The branches do not speak, yet they bend before the whisper of the wind. So should your soul bend in the quiet before God. Elias felt a new understanding settle within him. Prayer was not for show, it was for the intimate connection between his spirit and the Creator. The quiet place was not empty, it was filled with God's presence. With renewed purpose, he resolved to seek the secret places, where his voice would not be drowned by the noise of the world, but where it would be heard in the throne room of heaven. Number 4, confidence in God's grace. Yet still, a question lingered in Elias's heart. Could he, a mere man, truly approach God? Would the Almighty hear him? His search brought him to a young woman, her face alight with faith, who opened the scrolls and read aloud. "Let us then approach God's throne of grace with confidence, so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help us in our time of need." Hebrews chapter 4, verse 16. She closed the scroll and looked at Elias. "You doubt if he listens, but he has already invited you." She gestured to the hills beyond. "Look at the sun rising each morning, the rain that falls on both the righteous and the wicked. God's grace is present in all things." Elias reflected on these words. He recalled the story of the prodigal son, who, after wandering in despair, returned to find his father running toward him with open arms. Luke chapter 15 verse 20 came alive in his mind. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him and kissed him. The woman continued, "God's grace is not given because we are perfect, but because He is merciful. He does not wait for us to be worthy. He calls us to come as we are." Elias's heart swelled with realization. Confidence in prayer did not come from his own merit, but from God's unchanging grace. He saw now that prayer was not about proving himself, but about trusting in the love that had already been extended. With a newfound sense of peace, he whispered his next prayer, not with hesitation, but with certainty, knowing that God had already inclined his ear. Number 5. Follow the Lord's Prayer as a model. Elias wandered into a quiet chapel where a priest sat meditating. He approached with reverence and asked, "How do I pray in a way that pleases God?" The priest opened the scrolls and read from Matthew chapter 6, verses 9 to 13. "Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we also have forgiven our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one." The priest explained, "This prayer is not just words, it is a guide for your heart. It teaches reverence, trust, provision, forgiveness, and reliance on God's protection." Elias pondered this deeply. He realized the Lord's Prayer was not meant to be a rigid recitation, but a foundation, a way to shape all prayers. The words reflected total surrender, God's name exalted, His will embraced, daily needs entrusted, sins released, and protection sought. True prayer was a dialogue where the soul opened fully to the divine. The priest concluded, "Even Jesus in his final moments prayed, 'Father, into your hands I commit my spirit.'" Luke chapter 23 verse 46. Every prayer should end with trust, for he who hears also holds. Elias left with a transformed heart, understanding that prayer was not just speaking, it was yielding, trusting, and resting in God's will. Number 6. Persistence in prayer. Elias continued his search and met a fisherman, casting his net into the waters under the morning sun. The fisherman, hearing Elias's question, let out a deep laugh and said, "Prayer is like fishing, my friend. Sometimes you catch what you seek immediately. Other times you cast again and again, trusting that the waters will provide." He spoke of Luke chapter 18 verses 1 to 8, the parable of the persistent widow who sought justice and never wavered. She knocked at the door without ceasing, believing that persistence would bring an answer. Elias also recalled 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 verses 16 to 18, which reminded him to pray without ceasing, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus for you. He realized that persistence was not just about repetition, but about a heart continually seeking God, unwavering in faith even in moments of silence. As Elias sat by the sea, the tide lapping at the shore, he understood prayer was not about rushing God's response, but resting in His promises. Even when the answer seemed distant, every prayer carried weight, shaping the heart and strengthening the spirit. Number 7. Faith and trust in God's will. As Elias neared the end of his journey, he met an aged shepherd resting beneath a towering cedar. The shepherd, hearing Elias's questions, spoke with quiet assurance. To speak to God is to trust Him beyond the words. It is surrender, not demand. The shepherd gestured toward the rolling hills beyond. A sheep does not question its shepherd's path, even when the way is steep. It follows, trusting that the one who leads knows best. He paused and then continued, faith is more than believing, it is resting in God's wisdom, even when His answers seem delayed or unclear. The old man recited Proverbs, chapter 3, verses 5 to 6, reminding Elias that true faith required stepping beyond human understanding. It was not about receiving immediate answers, but walking forward with unwavering trust, knowing that God's direction, though unseen, was always purposeful. Elias looked to the sky, the first light of dawn breaking over the horizon. His journey had led him not to an answer of method, but to a state of being, a heart fully yielded. He no longer questioned how to speak to God. He simply did, embracing humility, sincerity, privacy, confidence, persistence, and surrender. As the sun rose, illuminating the path before him, he smiled, for he knew with unshaken certainty that he was heard. And so, Elias's journey had come full circle. Yet he understood now that prayer was never just a destination. It was a lifelong walk with the Almighty. He had sought answers, and in return he had found something greater, a heart that no longer strived for perfect words, but for perfect surrender. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Elias stood on the edge of his journey, his heart no longer heavy with doubt, but full of quiet reverence. This was only the beginning. The path of prayer was not a single moment, but a lifetime of seeking, bowing, and surrendering before the Almighty. Prayer is not about being heard by men, it is about being seen by God. May your heart be open, your words be true, and your spirit be humble before Him. If this message has touched you, don't let the journey end here. Like this video, leave a comment below, and subscribe for more. And most importantly, share this with someone who is searching, someone who needs to know that God is listening. May the peace of Christ be with you. Stay blessed and go in His grace.